So, we're just gonna wait for everyone to join in. Oh, yes.
All right, well, we will see you next week. Have a good weekend.
All right, so we're just gonna give it a couple more minutes, guys. We're gonna get Jessica on in a wee bit. So, a good topic today will be PhysioYoga. So it's actually interesting because I want to learn a bit more about this topic too. So it's gonna be great. So I'm gonna go live with Jessica. Just gonna hit accept. There we go. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Do you want me to turn?
If you can, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay, let's adjust here. Just give me 1 second.
Sorry, just give me one. I'm gonna be right back.
Hi, guys. Sorry for the jiggling. There we go. Does that work? Can you guys see me? Hi, January.
Thanks. All right, I'm here.
Okay. Can you
All
hear
right.
me okay?
Oh yeah, it's perfect.
Okay,
It's great.
awesome.
I'm just gonna shut a door right behind me. I'm in the clinic space, so like there's a laundry room right there. So I'm just gonna
Okay.
shut the laundry room if that's okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
sounds good.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
We have a goat here too, so there might be a baby goat running around.
Like an actual goat? We should have done goat yoga.
We could get the goat. We will get the goat to come by at one point. There's our like finance officer has like quite a few animals. Like she's got like a few acres, so
Okay.
she raises animals. So she was like, I can come into work today if I could bring a baby goat because there's no one at home to take care of her.
That's amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Goat yoga is actually a thing.
Yeah, it's actually crazy. Now we have like goat physio, I guess.
There you go. Perfect.
Been
The
a lot of
merging
fun.
of two worlds.
It's very. I do things differently. So this is something that's very different.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining today.
Farm animals. You're most
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you
For
for
everyone.
having me.
We'll kind of okay. Here we go. We're gonna have a goat break here. Sorry, she's coming. Just wait for it. There's a goat.
Oh my gosh.
This is a goat. Oh.
Oh my goodness. So cute.
So
Here's my new favorite party game.
Everyone has to pay. Everyone has to pay an extra $10 now because there's a goat.
Absolutely. Well worth it.
She's running around the clinic. It's adorable. She doesn't know where to go right now. So yeah. I'd like to thank you, Jessica, for joining. We can kind of go through what you do, more about you, and that way this is all saved anyways. We'll put it on YouTube, and kind of what you like to do as a physio, and then we can kind of get started if that works for you.
Yeah, sounds great.
Yeah, I'm pretty informal, so what I'll do is I'll point my phone to the screen while you talk about the slides, and I'll be your slide switcher. I will be your assistant.
Sounds good.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I really appreciate you being here. We're going to have a little bit of a yoga break midday. So I'll start out with a little bit of information about yoga and then how physio and yoga merge, at least in my world and my practice. And then from there, I'd love to do a little midday practice with you guys. So keeping in mind, a lot of you might be at your desks and at work. I will definitely factor that in. So hopefully we can have a little fun too. So this should be interactive. And Sunny, if you can also relay any questions that are popping up, that would be great because I can't see the screen super well.
Okay, yeah, I can do that, no problem.
Okay, beautiful.
Do you want me to say that as the questions come in, or just save them for the end?
Well, there'll definitely be a question section at the end. So whichever kind of works better with the flow that you found in the past, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I can. I'll say the relevant ones when they need to be said, I guess.
Perfect. Sounds
Yeah,
good. Okay, so we can go ahead and get started.
I can
Uh,
position my camera here to the slideshow.
Sounds good. Let's give Sunny a second to get it pulled up just while he's doing that. So, a little bit of background about me. I was started practicing yoga in Sri Lanka in 2004. It was a completely off the track for why I was there. I was actually past life working for a sea turtle conservation project. And I was living in a tiny little fishing village called Kaskoda on the western edge of Sri Lanka. And there I came upon the practice of yoga and was blessed and privileged to be invited to join. And it was beyond anything I had experienced at that point. I was very much, traditional high school athlete. Yoga was very out of my realm of what I saw for physical practice. But I immediately fell in love with it. So I carried that with me throughout and became a physiotherapist, and the two just seemed like the perfect marriage. And so here we are. So next slide is just a brief introduction to yoga. So this pyramid is actually quite hard to see, I'm realizing, but it's representing the 8 limbs of yoga. And so yoga, as we think of it in the West, we kind of think of it as being the asanas or the postures, the poses. That's what people commonly refer to as yoga. But yoga is actually more of a theoretical principle and practice that involves all of these 8 limbs, and it's more like an outline of a way of living that the yogic tradition believes will unite our mind, body, and spirit. And so something that tends to happen throughout our lives is that we tend to kind of cut ourselves off from our true essence and our true being. And yoga is just one suggested way of getting back to who we truly are. So the asanas are the physical practice of that, and asana actually means seat or to sit, and it was originally proposed as the ideal position for meditating. And as you may or may not know, that has now branched into hundreds of different poses and postures. I mean, the list is just endless and keeps growing, and the types of yoga out there are just as numerous. And that can be kind of overwhelming and confusing. So if you guys have any questions about that, I'd be happy to clarify. So we'll just move on from here. The benefits of modern yoga. This is just a general list. We'll kind of go through these one by one. But as you can see, a lot of them kind of fall in line. And here, again, I'm referring to the poses or the asanas. The benefits of the theoretical practice of yoga go far beyond this, but are definitely outside the scope of physiotherapy's purview. So this is referring to the physical practice of yoga. So one that I didn't mention on here is there is cardiovascular benefits as well. This comes up more as we kind of get into the flow aspect. And so that's a style of yoga that's more recent and modern. But anybody who's done a flow class knows that gets the heart pumping as well. The first benefit that I'm highlighting here, next slide, is the body weight resisted strengthening. And I would say that's one of the best aspects, in the sense that we can take it anywhere. And so our body is how we move and through the world and relate to the world. And so allowing ourselves to move our bodies through freedom, and being able to manage the resistance of just gravity in different scenarios can actually be a daunting thing for many people. And anybody who's come down a mountain of scree knows that our ability to stay upright can be challenged, and even on flat surfaces, as injuries arise or as we age, our ability to support our body weight is challenged. So the other thing is that yoga definitely focuses more on the stabilizers. So when we go to the gym, we often work our more superficial mobilizer muscles, the muscles that move our body throughout space. But in order for that movement to happen with integrity, we have to have good stabilization around our joints. And so yoga really focuses on building those stabilizers with awareness and alignment. And so that's been a huge benefit. It's also really helpful that each practice allows the practicer, or whoever's moving through the yoga practice, to grade their resistance depending on what feels right in their body. So they can add more or less just by applying tension or compression. And that will allow for different muscles to be activated within their comfort zone. Okay, so balance, for sure, gets worked often in yoga. I would say yoga focuses a bit more on static balance, at least initially, but that balance can certainly be progressed forward with some active movement. And this definitely comes up in a flow practice. So coming in and out of a pose allows us to work that active, unsupported balance. And this allows us to meet people where they're at. So we can start with a little bit more support, either by using a prop or even integrating the use of the opposing foot or arm. In some case, arm balances are definitely many of the poses that are an option in yoga. But again, this allows the practice to be challenged and in a way that's safe and meets the person where they're at. Okay, so flexibility, I would say this is this is the stereotype that a lot of people associate with yoga, is that it is a stretching practice. It is certainly that. As we've seen already, there's so many other aspects with strength and balance that get integrated. But the flexibility is more of a universal flexibility. So I'm actually absorbed in anatomy trains right now. For any physiotherapists out there, you may or may not have heard of this kind of theory of the myofascial lines in our body. And one of the things I love about yoga is that it allows us to load up the entire fascial line. And so many of us may have experienced this, where if we have limited movement in one part of our body will naturally kind of steal movement from adjacent regions. And so if you guys want to stand up, we can kind of play with this now. So feel free to grab something to hold on to balance. But I'll have you shift your weight over to one leg and then reach back and see if you can grab your other leg. And go ahead and bring your knee up to whatever point you need to grab your ankle. And then start to draw your leg back behind you. And just notice what's happening in the adjacent regions of your body. So as you draw your leg back and start to feel tension, do you find that your knee is wanting to drift forward? Or as you bring it back, do you find that you want to bend through your lower back here? And if so, can you tuck your tailbone under and feel a little bit more of a stretch in the front of your leg? And so this is something, you feel that, Sunny, hey?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so this is what we often find is that if we have a restriction or limitation in one region, we'll tend to steal movement from another adjacent region. And so yoga can be quite helpful because it draws awareness to where that happens. But also kind of loads up the body to prevent that inherent stealing of movement.
That's quite interesting, yeah.
Yeah. So this pose here is just kind of one way that we would progress a pose. So many people can't sit with their heels on their bum. And so there are lots of props and support that we can offer to even get them to that position, and then slowly starting to drift back into that second middle pose there. Again, you can see props can be used, and eventually those props can be taken away as it becomes available to the person and the patient. And then that bottom pose there for sure is an advanced pose. So next slide is just showing some novel movement here. Yoga also is kind of known for these contorted postures, and they are for sure weird, bizarre, not standard for every day. But that's one of the beautiful things about it, is that it kind of pushes us into these positions that we wouldn't naturally seek out or go into. And so that invitation through a yoga practice to kind of move the body into different positions that it wouldn't normally travel to is one of the benefits. And so here is half moon pose. And I actually find this to be one of the hardest poses for me because it moves in the lateral plane. And I am a very sagittal, so forward, backward mover. I do a lot of running and biking, and so my body is less used to moving side to side. But that's something I wouldn't have become aware of if I was always doing what felt natural to me. Yes, some of the poses are weird, but it's only an invitation to see if it feels right and good, or even different to you. So someone gave me this great analogy. She's actually on right now of kind of our tendency to stay in our comfort zone. And so many of us, kind of move with what we commonly feel is easy and good. And we tend to not kind of explore our boundaries outside of that area. So yoga is a great way to do that. Another one is breath awareness. So on the triangle slide at the beginning, we saw that one of the other, it was kind of hard to see, but one of the other practices in there was pranayama, or breath control. And so this can be integrated into any yoga class, but also, yeah, there you go. You got it. Thanks, Sunny.
No problem.
Watching my back. I love it. So just that pause to be aware of how our breath is moving in and out of our body can be a really, really powerful tool. And we, like a lot of the physios out there who are listening, and even people who practice yoga in their daily lives may have experienced where they feel some restriction to the movement of airflow in and out of their bodies. And so our lungs are housed in this beautiful armor almost of our ribs and our sternum, our spine, our chest bone, and then our backbone. So it's this beautiful, secure cage that's supported with muscles and tissue that's meant to move. And if there's not a lot of movement in that area, that cage can start to stiffen up and close down and make it more and more difficult to take deep, full breaths. And so this is something that we can actually work on, and yoga allows us to do that. The other thing is that it's a natural calming system for the body. And so when we get quite nervous or anxious or stressed, if we're feeling a lot of fear, the natural instinct ingrained in our body is to take more rapid, short, shallow breaths. And so by taking deep, slow breaths, it can actually counteract a lot of that sympathetic response to that fear and stress and anything that might be coming up. And I have found this to be a very powerful tool with athletes. I work with a lot of climbers, and integrating breath with movement. And Sunny, I believe you do a lot of powerlifting, and so you particularly must know the power of moving with the breath.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I know if I make the wrong breath, like I used to not pass out, but I would, I'd lose a little bit of consciousness once in a while.
Oh,
I
no.
dropped the bar a couple times. I never fell completely, but I would take a knee and just be like, okay, that was all breathing. That wasn't the weight at all. That was just me not using rhythmical breathing and stuff like that. So.
Right, exactly. And so that kind of buildup of pressure when we're doing something big and bold, our tendency also can be kind of to breath hold, because that gives us this illusion of more stability in our body. And so we tend to kind of grasp and hold, and that can increase pressures that don't necessarily serve us well, as you've experienced.
No, not
Okay, so moving right along, community support. So if you've gone to physiotherapy, you know that it tends to be a pretty solo act. It's typically you and the therapist. But one thing about yoga is that it's a very communal thing, particularly in the West. And so often you guys, I'm sure, have seen yoga classes advertised. And one of the beautiful things that has come out of COVID, and I hesitate to say that because I know that a lot of people, COVID has not been a beautiful thing. But I would say one of the silver linings for sure has been connecting virtually, and the ability for people all over the world to come in contact. And so that's that's been one of the blessings I've experienced during this period is taking my classes online. And I have loved seeing how people come together and share, and there's power in togetherness. It's something that I truly love integrating into my physiotherapy practice, because I do think we heal better when we heal together. So, yeah. So accessibility, anytime, anywhere. So, yoga, because you don't need equipment, because it's your body weight, because it's wherever you're at on any given day. It's accessible for life. And so, we now have Cosmic Kid Yoga. They're teaching yoga in schools as a way of mindful movement. And, people are able to do it late into their years. And so one thing I'm doing a lot of more recently is working with people who are doing prehab for upcoming joint replacements, many of them postponed, one of the not so good things of COVID. But this has given us a time to strengthen. And so yoga can be modified to accommodate anyone, really, wherever they're at and whatever their goals are. And the other thing is that it can be taken, a practice can be taken and integrated throughout the day. So anytime, that's me brushing my teeth, standing on one leg. I love that about yoga. And so on to why I've combined it with my physiotherapy practice. So physiotherapy is a treatment to treat movement disorders, whether that be from an injury or repetitive use, or habitual habits of movement that may not be serving us anymore, compensations. It's kind of a way. Physiotherapists are a tool. That's how I see my role, as a tool to help you kind of break out of whatever movement hindrance is not helping you live your life to your fullest capacity. And so physiotherapy is just, again, to kind of augment your life, your movement, and your yoga practice, whether it's a current practice or something you'd like to start doing. So I treat as a traditional physiotherapist, but yoga is something I've drawn in to kind of enhance not only my exercise progressions, but also awareness and mindfulness to how we're moving, because often what starts to feel normal to us may not be serving us to move anymore. So again, just a general list. We'll go through these one by one. I'm just going to pause quickly and check in. Do we have any questions that have popped up, Sunny, that maybe I should address at this point?
No questions yet.
Okay. So hands-on treatment, again, this is something that we traditionally associate with physiotherapy. So I am trained to do intermuscular stimulation and soft tissue release, cupping, all of these traditional physiotherapy tools that we use to help kind of reset the body. And so I've taken that and integrated it with yoga. So that middle slide there, you can see doing manual energy technique just to help release some of the obliques. And these types of things can be integrated into any pose, really. And so often I'll also use a physio or a yoga pose as a test retest. So if someone's having trouble getting into an aspect of a pose, and then I can do my physiotherapy treatment and retest, is that pose easier for them to acquire? That gives kind of a response-based treatment that guides my progression with the patient moving forward. So the two just really complement each other really well. But I would say on the next slide, oh, that was that side. Sorry, I didn't see it was popped up there, Sunny. So we'll go just the following slide there to mindful movement.
Oh, mindful movement.
Yeah.
There we go.
There you go. So mindful movement is again kind of drawing that awareness into how we're moving. And again, we can get into these habitual patterns of movement that feel so normal and so right. But there might just, so often I find before patients experience pain, they experience this sense of like something just doesn't feel right in my body, or like a new area that just doesn't move with the same fluidity and ease. And so helping patients kind of see where they're kind of maybe holding themselves back, or where they could move a little bit better, it can be a really powerful tool. And it's something I've experienced as well. I have a physiotherapist because in my own body, it's hard for me to see and feel how I might be moving, and having somebody draw awareness to that is super helpful. And so that feedback can be verbal. So somebody just saying, hey, try this, or if I do this, how does that feel? That's one way to get this little informed feedback. The other one is tactile. So I've given some examples here of how props can be integrated. So the one on the top there, I actually use painter's tape, and we'll do this in our practice later, but just painter's tape between the hip bone and the ribs to kind of give a little bit of feedback of pelvic tilt, moving in and out of chair pose. And then the balancing of a pole can also give kind of feedback for, are the stabilizers working properly in that bird dog pose in the bottom left, or, you know, and also how is the back wanting to move and change coming in and out of that bird dog. So, and then visual. So, you know, we use our phones for all kinds of stuff. And it's amazing that now most phones have video capacity and picture capacity. And so that's a tool that we can be using to help patients see, and then may or may not be able to change how they're moving. So really, really important. I would say the number one thing that I am trying to offer is this sense of interoception. So a patient's sense of what's going on in their body, how does that feel to them, and can they make any changes or adjustments that helps it feel better and more right. So proprioception with balance, you know, all of these things can be integrated with informed feedback and yoga and physiotherapy. So moving forward, all of this information then gets personalized to the patient. So modifications through props are a normal practice of yoga, but can certainly be a great addition to physiotherapy, home exercises, and to the patient's practice. meeting them again where they're at, but then also progressions. So knowing a patient's goals, kind of what they want to do, what they typically do, and how we can maybe challenge and offer them an alternative movement that may push them out of that comfort zone a little bit, is something that yoga really offers just naturally, but is a fundamental principle for many physiotherapists and the rehabilitation pathway. So measurable outcomes, this is kind of a technical term, but really what we're talking about here is, can we see change? Can we see progress? Are we moving in the right direction? And is that the direction that the patient wants to be moving in? So I find that, adding things like, okay, how far is your knee from the floor? Has that changed? Is something that a patient can really see for themselves, because often the change and that shift happens relatively slowly, potentially, and so there may not be a quick before and after. And so helping and highlighting that can be really informative. So I kind of touched on this for sure before, but this idea of progression. So when we are young and learning to be, we often start on our backs and then are able to roll over on our bellies. And eventually we get to a point where we may be able to sit up and crawl, and stand, walk, run. That's kind of what we see with these movement milestones when we're early, and learning how to be and move. We take for granted that we actually had to learn that. And when we are injured, that can get a bit derailed. And I find kind of going back to basics to be a really, really cool thing, because it can highlight ways that are areas where we may just have learned to compensate and we kind of are getting the job done. But when we go back to basics, we can pick apart those parts and figure out where's that breakdown in performance and how can we rebuild these patterns of movement to get back to kind of a full capacity. So yeah, I just gave a really quick example of how we might take this from fully supported pose and then bring that up to an unsupported, more advanced pose. And this may actually happen over a course of a treatment, but it could take longer. But yoga gives people a way to participate while taking the time to do it right and do it well and do it in a way that's best for them. Next slide. I had to throw in the Thera-Band because I am a physiotherapist at heart, and you can't do physiotherapy without Thera-Bands, right? So just another tool that can be integrated with yoga. So opposing the pose with some resistance, so the Thera-Band kind of working against, or even using it as assistance. So, I can't go home with the patient, but again, one of the awesome things that's come out of my practice during this time has been having to teach people more and more how to do things at home. So even going back up to that hands-on slide, a lot of those are kind of in clinic resets for the body, but even those resets for the body, those things can be taught to patients. Many of them. Like, I'm not going to teach a patient how to needle themselves, but I can teach them how to do a self-release and active release at home for themselves. And And so the Thera-Band can be one of those tools to kind of help, where I may be in clinic giving a hands-on guide of movement. The Thera-Band can also offer that hands-on, that kind of tactile assistance into a movement, or even resistance against a movement, challenging the patient a little bit more. And again, so we're going into supportive, and I've kind of touched on this as well in earlier slides, but just another demonstration of how helpful props can be to assist the patient and meet them wherever they're at. So, arms overhead may not be reaching the floor when you first start. And so propping that up, bringing the floor up to the patient, inviting the pose into the body rather than forcing the body into the pose, will kind of break that. So I think, actually, I should touch on this real quick. One of the other stereotypes of yoga is that it can be quite painful. And yoga is actually the very opposite. If it's painful, it means the body's kind of telling you that it's too much too soon. And so props can help back off a bit and still be doing the pose, but just in a way that's meeting the patient where they're at. So I offered some home hacks here again, because many of us are back in clinic, which is super awesome. And some of us aren't, or some of us are doing a mixture of both. And so here are just some home options. So the critical alignment strap, for those of you who don't know, is a black strap that's more recently introduced to yoga practice. It's great for spinal treatments and also just a feedback. I've shown you earlier in the slides how the broom pole can be integrated. The options are endless, and that's one of the fun things about yoga, is you can be super creative with how to do the poses and then modify the poses. And so it's I offered some options here for you guys. So I'd love to go into a brief practice if everyone's feeling up for it.
Yeah.
How are we doing on time, Sunny? It looks like we have a couple more minutes, hey?
Oh yeah, we have like, I'd say like 15 minutes.
Okay. Do you want to do questions first, and then I can wrap up with a practice, or?
Yeah, like questions wise, like we'll give everyone a few minutes to ask if anyone has any questions. I don't see any. I'm looking back. I don't see any questions right now, so if anyone has, just write them out.
Okay. Yeah, we'll kind of see what comes. Maybe this practice will pop up a couple. So I'll just give you guys a chance to get set up. So first thing I'm going to invite you to do is grab your office chair if you have one, and then kick off your shoes. So bare feet. I find nothing quite feels like a satisfying rebellion, like taking the shoes off at work. Letting the piggies out to play. So the other thing I'll invite you to grab, again, if you don't have them, no worries, but a highlighter, a pen, something that'll roll smoothly. And then a couple of these, I just learned that these are called bulldog clips. So if you have some bulldog clips, you can grab those as well. Some basic office supplies here. Yeah. And we'll just have you set those to the side. And so go ahead and come to the edge of your chair here. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background. She doesn't understand why she's not out in the open right now. Okay. So just come to seat on your chair here. And we're going to start with one hand on the chest. Actually, let's take our left hand and place it on our upper chest there, just over your heart. And then your right hand on your belly here. And I invite you to close your eyes and just take a moment to let the day slip away. Midday can be a great pause. And on your next exhale, let the morning be released through your breath. So literally think about breathing out anything that you experienced before this moment. And on your inhale, breathe into that place of the now. So much of yoga is about getting present with who we truly are and peeling back those layers of expectation and rush and demand on our lives to just be with our inner child, our true selves, who we are before we put on the layers. On your next exhale, start to curl your toes into the floor. And on your inhale, lift your toes off the floor, keeping all 3 points of your feet grounded down. Exhale, curl your toes. And inhale, lift and spread your toes as far apart as you possibly can, keeping your eyes closed if it feels right to you, and feeling how your feet are in contact with the floor. Inhale and lift and spread, and with your exhale, curl. On your next inhale, just relax your feet back onto the floor. And this time, notice where you feel contact with your feet. And start to feel your mind drift up into your legs until you reach your sit bones. And start to feel the contact between your seat
Oh no. What happened? Oh no. Well, it looks like we have to reconnect. Oh, yeah, there we go. I don't
I
know what happened.
gotcha. Okay. So where did I leave you?
We got to the sit bone.
Okay, sit bone. So thumb on your hip bone, or thumb on your rib, middle finger on your hip bone. And on your inhale, start to bring your belly forward and your bum out, and feel your thumb and your middle finger separate. And then exhale, start to draw your hip and your rib closer together, feeling your tailbone tuck. So inhale, belly out, bum out. Exhale, rock back the other direction. And just notice if your left hand is moving or if you're able to keep your chest in one place as you inhale forward and then exhale back. On your next inhale, come to a center position, so somewhere in between those 2 points. And notice how the pressure on your sit bone and your seat may have changed, or is it the same? And so from here, start to draw up your pelvic floor as if you're stopping yourself from urinating, just like we're sitting on the pot. And then start to firm up your lower belly as if somebody's going to poke you in the belly and you want to stop them from doing that. From there, shift your hands to your rib cage, elbows out, sassy style. And keeping your lower abdominals slightly engaged, now see if you can start to shift on your next inhale over to your right side. And breathe into those ribs to the right. And then exhale, come back to center. Inhale, shift over to the left side, opening up those ribs. And again, kind of notice, is your lower body moving? Or are you able to keep that centered while your ribs are moving independently? Inhale forward, starting to arch your ribs up a bit, filling up through your ribs and your lungs in the front, and then exhale back to neutral. This time, inhale, but arch back a bit, filling up your back body. This may feel a bit restricted and different, and that's okay. And then exhale, come back to neutral. On your next inhale, lift your right arm up to the sky, and exhale over to the left side, feeling a big opening through your right side, perhaps. And then inhale back up. Exhale, arm down. Inhale your left arm up and pivot over to the right side. Again, feeling, does it feel the same or different on this side versus the other side? And exhale your arm down. Inhale your right arm up and exhale over to the left. Noticing if you can get a little bit further this time or if it feels the same. Inhale back up to center, exhale arm down. Inhale left arm up and exhale over to the right side. Inhale up to center and exhale your arm down. Moving up to the neck now, think about tucking your chin as far down as you can, bringing your chin as if you're going to make some double chins, triple chins, maybe quadruple chins. And from there, start to roll one bone in your back of your neck at a time till your chin comes down towards your chest. Keeping that chin tuck, start to inhale back up and exhale your head back. Inhale back up to center. Tuck your chin down and exhale, roll down. Inhale back up to center. And this time we're going to exhale down. And then as we inhale, start to roll your head over to the right side until you come to full inhale with your head back. And exhale starts over to the left side. Full exhale, chin forward. Continue with your head circles, moving with your breath on the inhale. And just feel for any catches or glitches, or is the movement smooth? If you're feeling catches and glitches, can you smooth out that movement? And on the next exhale, come with your chin down to your chest and pause there. As you start to inhale, come back to the left now and revisit those different positions. Maybe it feels different going this direction, but notice if there's any points of stickiness or gooiness or areas that want a little bit more attention. Mine is right there. And if so, feel free to pause there and spend some time there. We're going to do one more breath around. Again, you can stay paused where you feel sticky or keep moving with your breath in circles. And then exhale ends with your chin down to your chest. And inhale back upright. From here, start to slide your feet back towards you so your toes are under your knees. Find your hip and rib bones again. And on your next inhale, come forward, pivoting at your waist, noticing if that rib and hip comes closer together and seeing if you can keep it apart. From here, take a deep breath in. And on our exhale, start to push through your heels, pressing the floor away, feeling for the same contact in your feet that you felt in sitting. So all 3 points coming all the way up to standing, squeezing your bum at the end and finding that point. So I'm just going to check in here because Sunny, it's about 4 till. So should we go ahead and wrap up?
I think so, yeah. There'll only be like
okay.
2 minutes. Sometimes it gives me a countdown for an hour, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay.
So I don't want to like have it rudely cut you off or anything.
Yeah,
so.
no, fair. I got lots more to give, but I think we should probably wrap it up there.
Yeah, then who knows? Like in the future, we can do it again. Because
Yeah.
I like looking at a lot of the myofascial patterns and stuff like that. I'm like, I can see this working very, very well. So
yeah, it's good stuff.
Like me being a person that hasn't done much yoga, something that I'm definitely willing to try. So and then work into. I like trying things to work into practice. So I think that's great.
Perfect. Yeah, and so if you guys have any topics that I maybe brushed over today, it was just kind of a general introduction, but if there's anything you want me to expand on, or if you're interested in a full practice, we could do that. So lots of different options.
You do tele options, right? So
I do, yeah.
Yeah, like I put the link to the website on one of my stories, but if anybody contacts me, I can give you Jessica's contact info and the website info so you can book in with her and do some stuff.
And the last 2 slides there, I just have my contact info on the last slide there, and then the second to last slide, I am offering a yoga session for climbers coming up here